This movie's definitely better than the first one, but still outrageous. Let's do it. Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 picks up after the events of the first movie. So they're now calling those events the 100-Acre Woods Massacre. And a lot of people in the town don't believe Christopher Robin, and they actually think that he was responsible because they never found like Winnie the Pooh and friends. And in this universe, they actually made a movie based on the events, and that's what Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey Part 1 is. It's super meta. So again, Christopher Robin is obviously traumatized from these events, and he's like an outcast because people think that he's a murderer. One of the people that does believe him is his childhood friend Lexi, as well as his parents and his younger sister, who they call Bunny. So Christopher Robin's obviously got some fucking PTSD, right? And he starts having these like weird dreams about Winnie the Pooh. And we also learn that Christopher Robin had a younger brother named Billy who got kidnapped from a birthday party years prior when they were kids. He was never seen again, and the person that took him was never found. So Christopher starts going to a hypnotherapist to kind of like work through these issues and see if he can like remember anything, like of his brother's kidnapping, if he can remember who took him. Meanwhile, we see that deep in the 100-Acre Woods, the feral animals are still being feral as fuck. We see this super gnarly kill scene of these girls in this camper. So obviously we have Winnie the Pooh. We have Piglet, thought he died in the first movie, he didn't. But we also have Owl, who is arguably like the scariest looking one. And we learn that the creatures are now forced to hide out because their home was burned down by people who came in and tried to burn it down after the massacre, like the ones that actually believed Christopher Robin. So now they're even more feral and they're more angry. And Owl talks to Pooh, who's obviously their leader, and Owl is the wise one, and he convinces Pooh that, you know what, we can't wait for more people to come into the woods, we need to go get them. We need to go into the town and we need to show them a lesson. So there are still a handful of townspeople that believe Christopher Robin, so one day 3 of them go into the woods to hunt out Winnie the Pooh and friends. One of those hunters is named Aaron. They actually end up finding them and they proceed to kill Piglet, actually dead this time. And then Pooh kills the other ones and he's like, you know what, Owl? You might be right. We might need to go into town. One of them, though, Aaron, actually ends up surviving, and he gets treated at the hospital that Christopher Robin is in. So Christopher sees him and he knows that something's up. Eventually, Christopher ends up getting fired from his job because of the backlash the hospital is getting for letting him work there. Even though he's been fired, Christopher goes back to the hospital to talk to Aaron, whose face is like severely disfigured from the attack. I can't show you this picture, it's too gory. And he basically confirms to Christopher that Winnie the Pooh and friends were the ones that did this. While at the hospital, Christopher Robin also runs into a janitor whose last name is Cavendish. And because of the hypnotherapy that Christopher is going through, he recognizes him and he starts to have like flashbacks and he recognizes him as the guy who kidnapped Billy, his brother. So Chris follows Cavendish home and confronts him about this. And he admits that he was working at the time for this guy named Dr. Gallup. And Dr. Gallup hired this guy to kidnap children to then bring back to Dr. Gallup so he could experiment on them. And the experiments that he was doing had to do with like transferring animal genes. He goes on to tell Christopher that none of the kids survived and he had to bury all of them in the 100-Acre Woods. But when he went back the next day, all of the bodies were gone. And not like dug up gone, but gone as in they crawled their way out of their graves. But they didn't come back as humans. They came back as these half-human, half-animal hybrid creatures. And those kids are now Winnie the Pooh and friends. And Christopher has this realization that Winnie the Pooh himself is his brother Billy. Cavendish, being overcome with guilt and now like making this confession, offs himself in front of Christopher. So through this, Christopher also like somehow understands that the animals are now going to go into town and attack people. So he goes in and tries to warn everybody, but of course everybody already thinks he's fucking crazy, so nobody listens. But they should have, because sure enough, night falls and the creatures make their way into town. So we have Pooh, Piglet, Owl, and Tigger, who we see for the first time. And they spread out, of course. So Pooh and Owl go after Lexi, who is Christopher's childhood friend. She manages to escape them. Then Pooh proceeds to go to Christopher Robin's house where he brutally kills Christopher Robin's parents. But his little sister Bunny manages to run away and escape. And then they arrive at this rave that is going on in the town. And this is really Tigger's moment to shine. This is the first time we really see his like full character. And he just fucking goes at them. He obliterates them like left and right, just dropping like flies. So Christopher arrives at the rave and he manages to shoot Tigger and stop him. And he now learns that Bunny has been kidnapped. So he goes into the 100-Acre Woods to save her. And of course, he comes face to face with Pooh, who we now know is his brother. A struggle ensues between the two of them, but eventually Christopher calls out Billy to him, like calling him by his human name. And it makes Pooh stop for a second and like almost reach awareness. But then he snaps out of it and accuses Christopher of abandoning them, which then led to Eeyore's death years prior. They continue fighting and Christopher is almost killed, but then Lexi comes in and saves the day. And she distracts Pooh enough for Christopher to be able to kill him with an axe. So it's over, or so we think. Police show up, they end up finding Bunny, she's safe, and they also see camera footage from the rave, so they now know that these creatures are very real and what Christopher Robin has been saying the whole time is the truth. So he gets cleared of any wrongdoing and goes on to live a happy life with his little sister. Just kidding, because Owl is still alive. He finds the bodies of Pooh, Tigger, and Piglet and brings them back to their underground lair. And he vows to find a way to revive them and get revenge on Christopher Robin in the town once and for all. And the movie ends setting us up perfectly for a third movie.